ba, ba, ba,
Hello.
ba, 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 ba. It's so soothing. It's so nice.
It's nice. It's just like kind of chill. Good. Yeah. So it's Wednesday night. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Doyle. Thank you, Dr. Whelan. It's our Ask the Doc nights.
Yay.
Thank you, future Dr. Brown.
Who knows? Maybe. We'll see. But
I've seen the future. It happens.
You've seen the future. I need to have a chat with you, Christine. I'm thinking about doing a PhD program, so we need to chat.
That is exciting. All right, we'll definitely chat about that.
Yay.
So you're gonna be just Dr. Brown or Dr. Brown Allison? Like you're gonna hyphenate? What you gonna do?
No, I would just be Brown. I never changed my name when I got married. When I married my husband, we lived in Quebec, and Quebecers do not change their last names.
Interesting. Okay.
And if you want to change your last name, it's actually a real pain in the butt. So I was like, yeah, I'm all right. I'm good with this.
Fair.
And I thought when we had kids, I would want to change my name. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just fine with it. So
yeah. Me too.
Yeah, it's all right. I'm like, yeah, this is good. I'm
gonna change my name to Bessel Vanderkolk, and I'm just gonna see what that does to my speaking engagements.
I like it,
and I like it too. Yeah, it's got weight to it.
I think it might be good for business. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Just a random thought that I have.
There could be some challenges.
You think?
But nah.
I don't know. Glenn and Doyle stole my name. I think I can steal Bessel's.
I think this is perfect.
Just saying.
So yeah, our Ask the Doc nights is one of our very popular nights. So as our doctors, you guys are here to answer questions about things like trauma and addiction, things like the self-help industry, and finding happiness and purpose. And so I have solicited our supporters to pull some questions from them. So I've got a list of questions for you guys. Most of them have come from our listeners. I've peppered a few of my own in there. And then, we can go from there.
I wonder if we're going to be able to tell the difference between the listener submitted questions and the Gene questions. Like, so there'll be one question is like, Doc, tell us about trauma. And there'll be like another question of like, don't you hate it when Glenn interrupts you on the podcast? And I'm going to
go, we would never be able to tell which is which.
Right.
Do you think Gene should talk more?
Yes, I do. Actually, everyone does.
I just listen. And then once in a while, I'll throw something great in there. Okay. So, well, I'll start with one that was a little bit left over from last night. So this is one of my own, but I'm starting with like a positive question here. What is the best advice you've ever seen in a self-help resource, in your opinion? Something that you were like, you know what, that is actually really, really good advice. And maybe you've even tried it and found that, you know what, it actually was really helpful for you.
Oh my God, this is a Christine Whelan question. If I ever heard one.
Wow, I mean, I'm running through. What is the best one?
Or
well, this kind of gets
pick from your top three, maybe.
Sure. I mean, this kind of gets to what we were talking about last night of self-help books that make a dent versus like I kind of think of self-help resources as falling into two categories. One, that they make a dent, and two, that they're maybe nice and inspirational and interesting, but they don't really make a dent, right? Like they're kind of carbs versus protein, if that makes any sense.
So one that always stuck with me is Dale Carnegie's advice about finding something sincere to compliment about somebody. And I do this all the time. Now, the thing about it is that it can't just be empty flattery, right? But when you're looking, there's always for me, there's always something nice or interesting about somebody that I can mention. And that really closes the gap between you and the other person. So for example, oftentimes with salespeople or folks who are working behind the airline check-in counter, the women will have fabulous nails. And I will always comment on their fabulous nails, because I too like to do crazy things with my nails. And so, then that creates a rapport that actually does win friends and help influence people.
Nice. I like it. It's simple and actionable.
Yeah.
Christine's always shilling for Dale Carnegie on these podcasts.
I totally am. And it's really funny because, I mean, I get no kickbacks. At one point, it was going to be it was the 100th anniversary of the Dale Carnegie Institute.
Mm-hmm.
And because my grandmother was his secretary, I met with somebody. This is like 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I met with somebody from the Dale Carnegie Institute, and like maybe we were going to do something. Nothing ever materialized. So, alas, no. I just really like the advice. I mean,
I love it. I love
it's
it.
Just really good advice.
It's one of your favorite self-help books. It's one of my favorite self-help books. In terms of a really good bit from a self-help resource that I think is really actionable and usable, I'm going to do a deep cut. There's one of my favorite self-help writers is a psychologist named Nathaniel Branden, who wrote. He was a psychologist who had a really interesting history. He before he was a psychologist, he was kind of a philosopher groupie. He hung out with Ayn Rand and really, really hung out with Ayn Rand, if you know what I'm saying.
I do.
It's a whole story, guys. Google it. Nathaniel Branden, Ayn Rand. Google it. It's a thing.
That's why I know that name. Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Yes. Okay,
gotcha. It's a whole thing. Anyway,
whole thing.
But he, Nathaniel Branden was one of the first psychologists to really write deeply and extensively about self-esteem, and he evolved a theory of self-esteem that I really like, that is really kind of stands in contrast to, like, we think of self-esteem as like, well, it's how good or bad we feel about ourselves, right? Like it's like, but Branden really takes it deeper, and he says, no, man, I mean, self-esteem is all about these decisions that we make every day, that either support or chip away at our self-esteem. So, but the bit that he wrote that I like is he talks about the principles of self-esteem. He calls them pillars of self-esteem, the 6 pillars of self-esteem. The first pillar of self-esteem is live consciously. So, and the way he operationalizes that is, if you have the choice in any moment to either go on autopilot or to be in this moment and actually engage in this moment, engage in the moment. Like when you're aware of the choice, choose to live consciously. And if I could think of like any bit of self-help wisdom that has more impacted me just globally, I don't know if if it can do better than live consciously with Nathaniel Branden. So
that's really beautiful. Yeah, it's so true.
Good.
You bet.
And when did you read this? And because I feel like also some of the self-help that we read early on really shapes us in really pivotal ways. And so these, so one of the, the self-help guru, Stuart Smalley from Saturday Night Live.
Good enough, smart enough.
And gosh darn it, people like me. Now,
based loosely on David Burns, but yeah.
Indeed. And okay, so this was one of the quotes I used in my high school yearbook to define me, because that's okay, because I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and gosh darn it, people like me.
You bet.
And I probably sort of meant it as a joke then, but I got to tell you, like, that has become a real part of who I am. And it, it's meant as this sort of flippant thing, but reminding yourself that you're good enough and that you're smart enough and that people generally like me, and that like these things have been something. And I found myself teaching it to my kids, only semi-ironically. So, I'd also just wanted to throw out there, it's interesting for people to think about some of the early self-help advice or aphorisms that you received, and how that becomes a part of you as you grow up.
You bet.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's a real strength of some of the more popular, like what we would consider the mainstream self-help guys, like Tony Robbins or Wayne Dyer, that they've got these little bits and pieces that everybody knows. Like, so a very popular quote of Tony Robbins that I really like is, "It is in our moments of decision that our destiny is shaped." Like he's been saying that for decades, and it's such a concise idea. And look, he's not the first person to say something like that, but it drives home the importance that, man, if we're going to improve our life, we have to think about our, what I call our pivot points, right? Like our moments where we actually have these teeny tiny micro choices, James Clear and micro choices, right? But no, I think that I'm a big believer. I've been saying this for years. I'm a big believer in therapy by slogan.
Yeah.
And the reason is because slogans are sticky, right?
Okay.
Like slogans can stick with us. You bet.
So Dr. Doyle, can I ask you a question about this? Mm-hmm. So when I was studying the self-help movement, I as a young person, I was really I looked down on mantras as sort of just silliness. Yeah. From where I stand now, mantras are incredibly powerful because they are really sticky. And so I'm kind of wondering whether what you know about what you can tell us about that from a psychological standpoint, and how we can kind of actually, in a research-based way, harness mantras.
Oh, you bet.
Yeah.
Because check it out. Like, something that I think about a lot, because I'm a trauma guy. And it's because I'm a trauma guy, I'm an addiction guy, and it's because I'm an addict that I'm a trauma guy, right? Like they're inextricably entwined. Folks don't like it when I say that, but it's true. And so I spend a lot of time thinking about what happens when we're triggered, and what seems to happen when we're triggered. Everybody who's been triggered has had this experience of we get hijacked, like our personality gets hijacked, and kind of this part of our brain right here that is all about kind of who we are and what we're all about. It's like it shuts down, and the middle of our brain lights up like a Christmas tree, right? So it's in those moments that you can have the most sophisticated relapse prevention plan ever, right? Like you can have the most sophisticated strategy for responding to a trigger. But if the lights are off here, what's going to be left? Well, what's going to be left is what has been heavily conditioned in us.
Yeah.
What we can do by rote, right? What we can do by feel, what we literally don't have to think about. The problem for survivors, myself included, and addicts, myself included, is that so much of that conditioning is such shit. Doing kind of mantras and slogans and stuff, and I'll fully cop to like my eyes were open to this as I worked my own addiction recovery and took things from like 12-step recovery, because 12-step recovery is all about the slogans.
Yeah,
it's all about these simple, direct, and we're going to repeat it over and over again, and don't even think too much about it. Some people say it's cult-like, and we can have that conversation, but because that's what's left when this shuts down, when the frontal lobe shuts down, we're left with our conditioning. Yeah. And so that's why slogans that are repeated over and over again that we literally don't have to think about, right? So one that I get a lot of mileage out of, and if you read my writing, you know where I'm going here. I get a lot of mileage out of, fuck it, just do the next right thing.
Yep.
You know? Fuck it, just do the next right thing. When I get overwhelmed, it's like, whoa, one day at a time. Whoa. Just today, do today, right? Just for today. So, and there's even more neuropsychology that goes into it, but the broad strokes are like when this shuts down and the middle of the brain is lit up, we are left with our conditioning. So make sure that you got something there other than what your bullies and your abusers conditioned into you, know?
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
And I think in the self-help context, this is part of why NLP, even though sometimes it's talked about like kind of junk psychology, but it's essentially this like repetition that I think is an attempt to, insert themselves into that sort of subconscious space.
100%.
Yeah.
And NLP is all about, so if you don't know what we're talking about, it's me and Christine's favorite subject, neuro-linguistic programming. Everyone thought they were psychologists in the 70s. And it's what it is. It's kind of a NLP is actually kind of a hodgepodge, but a lot of what it revolves around is what's called state management. And state, what your capital S state, what your state is like just your overall vibe, like the sum total of everything you're thinking and everything you're feeling and everything like right. And so what NLP seeks to do is to provide you with tools to develop new tools that you can alter your state and not be at the whim of whatever's happening around you that will affect your state. And here's here's the thing about that. Like, okay, things that alter our state radically all at once are usually destructive. It's usually trauma. It's usually terrible things that we didn't expect. Like if something can alter your state all at once, like our nervous system was actually not designed to suddenly radically alter. Our nervous system was designed to alter gradually and intentionally and to grow and evolve and stuff. So if a change happens radically all at once, you're kind of doing violence to yourself. Even if it's a better state, you think it's a better state, that process is not good for you. Right? So this is where NLP kind of like everyone who gets excited about NLP is like, well, I can instantly change my state. Like I kind of think, okay, that might not be the good news, the flex that you think it is. Just saying. We should do a whole show about NLP, Jean.
We really should.
Yeah.
In a teaching and learning capacity, in all of these things. Oh, thank you, sweetie. My son just brought me tea.
Oh, there you go. See, Christine's state was just altered. Look at that.
See, yes, John, you just altered my state for the better.
State management. You bet.
Okay, I'm going to show a question here that came in from one of our Facebook viewers. Hi, Sam. This is a great question. So she says, I struggle with the self-help angle in a pyramid type hype in my industry of real estate. I find myself shying away from webinars and production seminars. A lot of it just simply strikes a nerve, and I'm wondering if it's detrimental to not being super successful. I have totally seen this in the real estate industry. In fact, I remember one time seeing like an advertisement on the subway in Toronto for like a real estate expo day kind of thing for real estate agents, and Tony Robbins was going to be there, and some of the HGTV stars were there, and I was just like, yes, I think that kind of energy is definitely there's a lot of it in the real estate industry. So I think it's tough for people who want to be in businesses like this when they have to contend with the way that the industry operates, when, real estate is a perfectly legitimate business. But so any thoughts you guys have?
I think it's like a sales. I mean, there's, when you're in sales, the idea is that you want to be positive and perky and optimistic and a can-do kind of person, right? And certainly that can go too far, but there really is a benefit in having positive attitudes and being optimistic when you're in sales in particular. So it's kind of, it's this tough thing. What I can tell you is from a different perspective, which is I am often the keynote or one of the speakers at some of these conferences. And about, 10 years ago, I got it in my head that like really the problem was that everybody was being too perky and upbeat and optimistic, and I was going to get real with folks. And I was going to go deep and tell people about my struggles, tell people about the challenges. Dr. Doyle is already just knowing where this is going.
I love it.
And I really believed that I was doing something good and necessary. And it was a disaster. Nobody wanted to hear it, because the people who come to these events are coming because they want to be energized, because they want to be perked up and more optimistic and given more hope. And I violated one of like the core codes of these kinds of events when I came in with what is, I will still say, true and real and honest advice.
Yes.
But what happened was that everybody looked at me, and I know this from the comments afterwards, so I'm not projecting or making this up. People hated me. What they said was, that poor woman has had all sorts of struggles. I'm so sorry she went through that, but it wasn't helpful to me because I don't relate. Now, every single person in that room related to what I had to say.
Of course.
It's just they didn't want to hear it at that moment.
Of course.
So I think these are really interesting and difficult questions when it comes to, like, you know, if it makes you sort of cringe to be in those settings. But also know that, like, those settings are structured to be that.
You bet. It's, you know, I think about this a lot because it's such a fine line. Gene and I did an episode of the podcast about guru lore a few weeks ago, and it was all about how one of the reasons why certain gurus are who they are, like it's a standard part of the self-help guru shtick to have their lore, to have like okay, like Tony Robbins was living in his little bachelor apartment doing his dishes in the bathtub, which is the detail that always sticks with me for some reason, right? And it's undeniable that a certain amount of the appeal of certain gurus is all about their lore, that including me, right? Like there's an aspect, like if you're into my stuff, you're into it because often you're into it because you know my story and stuff. That said, one of the reasons why I'm never going to make that sweet Tony Robbins money. Prove me wrong, gang. Prove me wrong.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons why I'm never going to make that sweet Tony Robbins money is because there's an extent to which folks who there's a certain subset of folks, usually not the folks who follow someone like me, but they come to those kind of events looking for an excuse to bypass the necessary processing and recovery stuff that goes along with those experiences, right? So what's the appeal of Tony Robbins living in a shithole and doing his dishes in the bathtub? Well, the appeal is like, okay, you can experience that, but it doesn't matter because you're so positive and stuff, and you can bypass right past that. You know, he never talks about who is calling me. The entire world knows I'm on live stream right now. Who the hell is calling me? Anyway.
Scam.
But yeah, they're looking for a reason or an excuse or permission to bypass the very real processing and recovery work that has to go on. I think if you follow someone like me, because I'm the one good guru, guys. If you follow someone like me, I should trademark that, the one good one.
The one good guru.
I'm going to tell you, yeah, you can have those challenging experiences, and yeah, you can move to a different place in your life. There's no way that we're going to skip the processing and the recovery and the kind of all that stuff. But it's such a fine line.
Yeah. So Sam is asking, like, do you have to participate in this stuff in order to be successful when this is what your industry is kind of telling you to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Practically, I would say if you need to show a certain number of hours so that you can get a promotion, then yes, you need to show those hours. Do you need to buy into that stuff? No. I mean, I think that everybody, when you are your authentic self as a real estate agent, you are going to find clients who gravitate to that authentic self version of you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean,
yeah.
Do you want to be a Debbie Downer all the time? Probably not. But
in a way, it kind of goes back. I think it's hard in sales. Like my husband and I had a jewelry store for a while, and I would always laugh because I was like, I actually hate selling things to people. If they came in and they wanted to buy something, I was great at helping them find the right thing. But I wasn't good at convincing people who didn't want to buy something to buy something, right? Because it just kind of goes against like something within myself that doesn't want to like manipulate or push people. I feel like in a way it kind of relates to the Dale Carnegie advice of, giving a sincere compliment. I think you can still do your job in a way where it's all sincere, and you're out there selling real estate and you've got an audience of people who they want to buy something, right? They're looking to buy. So, if you're sincere and if you have integrity about the way you're working, then I think you can hopefully try to just ignore some of that other stuff in your industry that might be trying to tell you to do it a different way. Yeah, it's tough. Yeah. Okay. So there's another kind of related question. So we had, there were lots of comments. Many people have had experiences in industries like real estate, like selling insurance, where these kind of manipulative tactics are in these sales environments.
Well, one of the grossest, just by the by, one of the grossest examples of this is on the Amazon Prime documentary about LuLaRoe. Did you guys watch that?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
And because LuLaRoe was, maybe still is, like way into that, like really kind of hit like in their annual convention. They had self-help guys come in and do the keynotes and stuff. And there's in one of the episodes of LuLaRich, there is one of their executives who's on stage and she's talking about victim mentality, which is a standard trope, and it's gross. Like it's the distillation of the problem with.
It is.
Yeah.
And this is also the distillation of the problem with The Secret and the law of attraction, right? Because the idea is if you are not positive, then you are drawing the negative energy to you. And you are attracting these bad things to you. So when you're not successful, it's in fact your fault. Right. You wanted it because you weren't positive. And so the blame the victim cycle is deep and insidious on a lot of this good vibes only, positive perkiness.
Big time.
And yet, in the last couple of years, what I have realized is that there is also a way to get important concepts across in a positive way that people are more ready to hear in these contexts. So I have worked really hard now to take some of those core messages that were rejected when I tried to be real and more negative, and try to reframe them in more empowerment, positivity tones, while not changing the core message. And that's possible too. So there is a way to say something real, to affect real change, and to be the kind of person you want to be while also being true to those core values.
The Purpose Professor delivering a message of hope.
I know, it's amazing, right?
Right here on Seek Week. We love it. We love
right
to see
here,
it.
right here. Brick by brick, we build a life of purpose, Dr. Doyle.
Ooh, Christine.
I think it's also good to remember that, like, I think sometimes when we think about being positive, we imagine that positivity is like some sort of artifice of happiness, right? Like you have to be super, super happy. But positive, I think, can also just be about working towards something, trying to build something. And that's not always like smiles, right? There's hard work in that, but it's positive in the sense that you're creating something and you're building something. So, when the idea of like, oh, I can't just like slap on a smile and everything's going to be fine. I don't think that's, I think when you get into a deeper message about positivity, that's what we're talking about rather than just the artificial type of positivity.
You bet.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's another question. This question comes from our friend Ann Peterson. This is a great question right in Seek Safely's wheelhouse here. I would love to hear a bit about some early warning flags people experience when they are in a manipulative or high control group.
Dr.
So when
Doyle,
they first get in,
yeah, I was going to say that sounds like a Glenn question.
Mm-hmm.
So first things first. There's this whole concept of recognizing red flags. It's as useful as it is, but something that whenever I discuss this concept, I feel it's really necessary to point out that it's not uncommon for folks to miss red flags, and it's not uncommon for red flags to appear green. Okay, especially if we have a history of abuse or neglect. And the reason why I point this out is because I don't want to feed this fantasy that, man, if only we had a perfect understanding of all the red flags, that we could totally avoid being taken advantage of, because I just don't believe that's true. So is it useful to be acquainted with what could be red flags? Yeah, absolutely. Right. And in fact, Seek Safely, we have whole lists of red flags. If you go to our website, we have, so here are red flags when you're at an event. Here are red flags when you're getting involved with a self-help ecosystem, right? Like pay attention to these kinds of things. The biggest one that I think of, so if we're talking about personal development stuff and engaging with, whether it's a guru or a therapist or like whatever it is over-promising without knowing you personally, right? So one of the big criticisms of my work, and I get this feedback a lot, is, well, okay, so Glenn, you post a lot of stuff on your social media, but you rarely get super specific about strategies and tools that folks can use to recover from trauma and addiction. And people get really frustrated with that. And Lord knows I get it. Here's the thing. I don't know you. And anybody who's going to post super specific strategies and tools and pretend that they apply to every survivor or every addict in recovery is trying to sell you something, and something that's probably not consistent with the science of what we know about trauma and addiction. Because something that we know is that, man, strategies that try to paint with too broad a brush, has anybody ever had the experience of, they say, okay, how do you recover from addiction? Well, you go to a 12-step meeting. Has anybody ever had the experience of going to a 12-step meeting and hating it? It just doesn't vibe, and it's not helpful, and I hate the God stuff, and like all that stuff, right? And then when they try to say, okay, this isn't for me, they consult their Seek Safely compass, and then they say, this is not for me, and they try to leave. Sometimes they'll get shamed for that. Well, you're in denial, right? Like you're not taking the process seriously, and et cetera, et cetera. But that's the kind of danger that can go with these overgeneralized things. So my first big red flag would be, man, if a guru or an organization or something says, man, we've got the secret sauce, and I don't even know you, but I can tell you that. To me, that's a big red flag. To me, that says, okay, they're trying to sell you something sight unseen, as opposed to what I would consider a green flag, which would be a therapist or a mentor or even an organization that says, look, I don't know what you need to recover from trauma. So on my page, the stuff that I post and I talk about is I say, look, I post things that I think are useful to think about in recovery, but I will never say this is how you recover from trauma. I break these things down by tools, skills, and philosophies. I don't really talk that much about tools. I don't really talk that much about skills. I talk a lot about philosophies because those tend to be the more generalizable things, right? But a green flag would be a therapist or somebody who says, I don't know what you need to recover from trauma. I can tell you, here's some things worth thinking about in my experience and consistent with my training. Here are things to think about. So that's a big one, kind of these big promises. The perfect example of this is, as much as it breaks my heart because I have my soft spot for good old Tony Robbins. One of his books is, I've got it right here, in fact, Awaken the Giant Within. It's a brick. It's actually one of the better self-help books ever written. But the title of this book is Awaken the Giant Within. The subtitle of this book is How to Take Immediate Control of Your Mental, Emotional, Physical, and Financial Destiny. Could you oversell it anymore? You're not just
every destiny, all of your destinies all at once. We're going to take control of all of them.
Yes.
Immediately.
That's a red flag. That's a red flag, friendos. So that's an example. I don't know, Christine, if you would.
Yeah, that's a really, really good one. The other one that I would add to that is whenever you're in the setup where everything that you have previously believed is wrong, and everything that this guru or this mindset is going to teach you is right, then that raises a big red flag. So one of the things James Arthur Ray would do was talk about the idea that everybody had these goggles on,
Yes.
and that these goggles were what, and so we thought it was real life. We thought that we were making the right decisions, but
Yeah.
only he saw clearly. And
Mm.
if you go to his workshops, he would help you take the goggles off and see the world as it really is.
The Matrix, right?
I was just
Exactly.
gonna say, if they start talking about the Matrix
That's a red flag. That's a
automatically,
total
or
red
red
flag.
pills, blue pills, we're in red flag territory.
Right.
Big
This
time.
is really a red flag thing. And yet I understand why people believe it, in part because there are times in our lives where we have realizations where we're like, wow, I was completely blind to this. And now that I see this thing, I see the world differently, or I was this and now I am that because of a change in perspective. So that exists. That's true. That happens to us in the normal course of events in a life. So, but when a guru is trying to force this on you and say they have all the answers, and you and your therapist and your family and your faith and everything is all wrong, red flag.
Yeah.
Too bad.
Good. I like that. I'm going to offer one too that I find is, I don't know if, I guess we've articulated this a bit, but I find this one really tricky. I think it's important when you're at an event to really check in with yourself. And if you are feeling a little bit high, or if you're feeling very exuberant, and this is hard because like I'm an extrovert. I really enjoy being with people in a group. I find it really gives me energy. So I feel like I'm prone to that experience of being in a setting and just feeling really, really, yeah, exactly. And so I think you have to check in with yourself to ask yourself, okay, like, let me step back a minute. What's going on here? And then does the event that you're at, does it give you the opportunity to step away, or is it trying to keep you in that bubble where you're going to be up on that high for a long time? I think that's a tricky one because you're like, I feel great. What's the problem here? I feel so good. But I think that is one that I would recognize now to say to myself, okay, wait a minute, I'm feeling like really, really good. I need to just like take a pause and think about what that means and why I'm feeling this way.
We did a great episode about this with what's his
Dr.
name?
John Hunter.
Dr. John Hunter.
Yes.
About kind of what happens in the brain when you're in that large group awareness training context, and how that euphoria is created, and it's considered a feature, not a glitch, that it kind of shuts down this part of the brain and lights up that middle of the brain. And here's the thing. So many folks, look, if you're attending a self-help event, ask me how I know, right? If we're attending a self-help event, part of us kind of wants that. Part of us wants to be taken out of our reality. Part of us wants to see through the matrix. Part of us wants that. And so that can get like really seductive. And as a recovering addict, I can tell you that anytime you feel you're being seduced and you kind of like it, part of you kind of likes it, it might feel kind of dangerous, but maybe that's a feature, not a glitch, right? It's time to press pause, right? Like it's time to press pause and to check in with yourself. I'll offer one more red flag before we kind of move on. But so I use certain terms. If you read my work, I use certain terms that I kind of invented. Like, so I say trauma brain a lot, capital T, capital B. And I don't use it as a term of jargon, because if anybody asks me, I will tell them straight up what I'm talking about when I say trauma brain. And there actually, I write a lot on my page about this is what I mean when I say that. But if a teacher or a group is using a lot of jargon, and if it's not immediately accessible what that jargon means, or if you need to pay to find out what that jargon means, to me, that's a red flag. And kind of one of the big examples of this is good old Scientology. Scientology is front loaded with all sorts of jargon. And I thought in the book, Going Clear, Lawrence Wright makes this really interesting observation about Scientology. He says, look, Scientology calls itself a religion, but in any other major world religion, Christianity or Judaism or Islam, like whatever, you can go look up what it's all about, right? And not for nothing, like most serious adherents of that religion could probably explain it to you in a few moments, like the big ideas, right? Scientology, not only can you not do that, but it is forbidden to do that because you got to take the OT levels, right? Like you got to pay for those. And as it turns out, there's a reason for that, right? One, they're trying to financially exploit people. Two, once you hit OT3 and you start learning about Xenu, you're either in or you're out at that point, and they're hoping that they're looking to hang on to the people who are willing to buy in. But the point is that a red flag is if there's a lot of jargon being thrown around, and look, this happens in trauma all the time. Like there are types of trauma treatment, some of which have some decent support. Like trauma, my field of trauma work, trauma psychotherapeutic work, I feel has a problem insofar as we're very big on, we love our 3-word therapy, our 3-letter therapies, and we love our branded therapies, and you can't just do EMDR, you got to do the certified EMDR, and you can't just do DBT, you got to get certified by the Lenahan people, et cetera, et cetera. But if they're throwing around jargon and it's not immediately accessible to you, or if you have to pay to learn it, that's I consider that a red flag.
Yeah.
And just to piggyback on that, I would also say that if you're watching YouTube Shorts videos about something, if you're, when you hear the jargon, write it down and then look it up.
Yes. Yes.
When somebody claims something that, and shows you an academic study and flashes up some journal article on the screen and says, this journal article says this, look it up and see what it really says. Because often people are misrepresenting even their sort of citations and their sources. And it's important to, ask an expert, talk to people about these things.
Yeah. Don't just take it at face value. That's a good one.
I had this frog in my throat. Just said Huberman. About.
Yeah. Okay. But I'm glad you got that frog out. Thanks.
Okay. So unfortunately, we may have missed the red flags, and you get into a high control group. So somebody asks, can you speak to the experience of relational loss after leaving a high control group? Specifically, how to navigate the isolation that comes when the people inside cut you off, the people outside don't understand, and you're left in that space between carrying guilt, shame, and the need for support that isn't easily met.
It's huge.
That's a big one.
It's huge, and I'm going to wrap this around kind of a mini spiel about complex trauma, because I'm a trauma guy and that's what I talk about all the time. But when we talk about complex traumatic stressors, we talk about stressors that unfold over time. It's not like a flashbulb trauma. Stressors that are functionally inescapable, like a high control group or a high control relationship, and trauma that is entwined and enmeshed in our important relationships. Like those are kind of the big 3 characteristics of complex trauma. So when you try to get out of a situation like that, specifically because this, like everything has been entwined in these relationships, right? Like, and high control groups are really great at that. They're really great at alienating and isolating, just like any high control relationship is. Like domestic violence, you see this all the time, right? Where people are cut off from sources of support and friends and heavily controlled and kind of all that stuff. And don't think abusers and cults don't know what they're doing, because that's one of the things that they wield to keep folks in. Like you may have arrived at the conclusion that this sucks, but if you leave, you lose all your friends. In some cases, you lose your opportunities to make money, right? Like in some cases, you lose your opportunities, like your access to family members, and they know that. So you wind up having left, and you've lost all this stuff. You need to treat it like a complex stressor, like a complex traumatic stressor. You need to understand that at first you're going to experience all the stuff that victims of child abuse and neglect probably experience. And this is something that a lot of people, I could talk about this for an hour. Jean's like, please don't. We do that on the podcast all the time, but this is something that a lot of people misunderstand, because people think complex trauma is all about childhood stuff. And yeah, it can be about childhood stuff, but leaving high control groups and relationships as an adult can absolutely evoke complex trauma. So you need to, first of all, cop to the fact that you're a trauma survivor and you need support. You're not going to do this on your own. You're probably not going to wing recovery. You're not going to be the one survivor to figure out just how to vibe your way through to recovery. Yeah. So I would say start learning about complex trauma and start learning about what that recovery process looks like. I would also say start seeking out communities of other complex trauma survivors. And I would use that language, complex trauma survivors, in terms of Facebook groups and look, there are good groups and there are bad groups, but you need to know that for as isolated and alienated and alone as you feel, there is a trauma recovery community that once we cop to the fact that we are trauma survivors, and once we decide that we want to work a recovery, that plugs us into a worldwide community that you will find others like you and others who will support you in learning. It's just like getting into addiction recovery. Like every addict who leaves their substance, ask me how I know. Every addict who leaves their substance thinks that, man, I am all alone in the world and nothing will ever help. Well, once you cop to that and say, I'm an addict in recovery and I'm not the first, I'm not the last, there are others out there like me. That's when you do stuff like, even if it's like following a trauma page, like following my page, and you find comments, and as it turns out, you're not as alone, right?
Yeah. So I was going to ask, this is kind of related. So my question was, how important do you think it is for someone in the trauma recovery field to have experience with the type of trauma that they're helping people with? Or kind of on the flip side of it, as a person seeking support, do you have advice for what type of professional people should be looking for?
Oh, you bet. I mean, I think that it's no secret that I really value lived experience. And I'm going to tap the brake and stop short of saying that to effectively work with survivors, a mental health professional has to have lived experience. What I will say is that in my experience, lived experience adds a dimension that is, to trauma work that is absolutely essential to some survivors. Now, check it out. There are plenty of great therapists out there who have all kinds of backgrounds. And it would be kind of silly to say like, well, okay, you need to have experienced exactly the kind of trauma that you're looking to treat, because the truth is no two people have experienced the exact same type of trauma. There tend to be certain commonalities among survivors that, again, it's just my experience that it's hard to replicate in folks who don't have direct experience. It's also my experience. I feel like I'm saying experience a lot. It's also my experience that folks who do not have that lived experience, it's not that they can't be good therapists or productive therapists. That said, they tend to be a little more vulnerable to the cultural myths around trauma. And I don't love that. I've seen some nasty stuff around that. In terms of what kind of professional you should be looking for, I'll tell you this: the right professional is the one that you can afford. The right professional is the one that you have access to. I've had folks say, and my heart goes out to them. I've had folks say, that I don't know, like they'll reach out to me and say, you're the only person who can help me. First of all, that's not true. Second of all, it's not true because it's never true, but it's also not true because I don't know you and I'm not accessible to you. My caseload right now is full. Like I'm not accessible. So I'm actually not the right or the only person who can help you. So the one that is reliable, that you click with, like, so all the research on psychotherapy efficacy says the biggest variable, like even more than the therapist background, the therapist training, the therapist experience, the modality of therapy, the biggest variable that makes a difference in successful therapy is the click, is the goodness of fit between patient and therapist. So the right therapist for you is the one that you click with, and the one that you can afford, and the one that you can trust. if we're going to get down to credentials, that's a really hard question to answer, because I got to tell you, like, I have worked with big deals in the trauma community who have doctorates. My former mentor was a very big deal in the trauma community, and she was a counseling psychologist. She had a PhD. She's board certified psychologist. And today I would not refer somebody to her. Like, her approach, I don't dig it. And some of the best therapists I've ever met, in fact, probably the best trauma therapist I've ever met, was a licensed clinical social worker. Now, in the hierarchy of stuff, right, like the PhD should outrank the social worker, should outrank the counselor, et cetera, but that's kind of bullshit. So I can't really give a recommendation like, oh, you got to look for this specific credential. I mean, I would look for a therapy license. Like I prefer folks go to therapists as opposed to coaches, and that kind of thing. But that said, it's also the case. This is where I have to make my obligatory disclaimer vis-a-vis Teal Swan. I get the Teal Swan thing, man. Teal Swan tackles issues in trauma recovery. Sometimes I don't love how she does it, and sometimes I don't love the language she uses. But she fills a gap that a lot of therapists are kind of jittery about going. Like, she talks about the issues around suicide a lot in a way that therapists oftentimes are kind of don't love it. So yes, I prefer folks go to licensed therapists. That said, sometimes you will stumble upon a teacher or a mentor or something, a spiritual advisor, a sponsor who is right for you and has the right experience, has what you need to hear. What you want to do is keep your wits about you, right? You want to keep your seek safely compass handy. Like you really want to kind of not lose yourself in the music, the moment. You really, really want to pay attention to the red flags.
Yeah.
Stuff.
All right. Thank you. All right. I'm going to give us one. This is another seek safely kind of question. Given the lack of regulation in the self-help industry, how should we understand the ethical responsibility of leaders who create and teach doctrines that redefine or dismiss morality, conscience, and emotion as illusions?
Oh,
that sounds like a Dr. Whelan question.
Oh, yikes. This comes right back to a seek safely compass, right? I mean, if you are faced with a leader who you believe is doing this is not going to be the leader that you want to follow. And so, you can call it, in the therapeutic context, you can call it a right fit. In the self-help context, there is an element of right fit too. If you think somebody is acting immorally, that is not a right fit for you. If somebody is asking you to put your morals aside to follow them, that is not a right fit. That is that's just not good juju on this. So the idea that all these things are illusions, that anytime anybody is talking about anything as an illusion in this world, that sets up another red flag for me.
Yeah.
A lot of those concepts are ones that are really emotionally manipulative. So one of the things that's challenging is that most of us cannot talk about our morals and our values in a sort of like, this I believe kind of way. But when we are challenged and something, like, you'll have that ping inside of you, like, wait, that doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
Be aware of that, because that actually, those are your morals coming to the forefront. Yeah. And certainly people will say, right, well, all of this was conditioned in your childhood, and just because you think it's wrong doesn't mean it actually is wrong. Maybe you were just socialized to believe that. But before you go and throw it all away, all of your social history by the wayside, check in with a lot of people, talk to people, get a lot of opinions from all walks of life, and in that, as you're talking, as you're looking inside yourself and talking to other people, I think you can make a smart and safe decision.
Yeah. And in this question, you know, the lack of regulation in the self-help industry, it's unfortunate, but it really is on the consumer to do this work because of that lack of regulation. I mean, that's why we're here, because we recognize that void of accountability within the self-help industry, and we're trying to both help professionals find some ethical way forward and then also try to compel some ethics through regulation. Right. But yeah, unfortunately, it really is mostly just up to the consumer.
I can tell you how. So Kelly asked about the ethical responsibility of leaders who are kind of putting the stuff out, especially paradigm challenging stuff. This is how I understood her question. And I can tell you how, like, I don't think I put anything out there that is particularly paradigm challenging. Like I always say that, I mean, if you know my influences, you know my stuff. There's nothing new under the sun. Like my stuff is a grab bag of recovery stuff and self-help stuff and that kind of stuff. But I can tell you how I understand my ethical responsibility as someone with an audience. I think if somebody's going to put stuff out, if a leader is going to put stuff out there, and if it is predictable that by adhering to that leader's doctrines, teachings, whatever, it is going to create hardship, I think the leader has the ethical responsibility to acknowledge that and discuss that as part of their teaching. So, for example, with a lot of these self-help guys, especially the quantum physics guys, right? Like the James Arthur Rays and the Joe Dispenzas, right?
Write it down, look it up, and see if when they're talking about quantum physics, if that's what it actually is.
They're not talking about quantum physics.
Really not. They're really not. But anyway. But when they put stuff out there, and this is a radical shift, like if you've accepted their teachings, it's a radical shift, and it will bring you into conflict with the culture because not everybody thinks that way. Yeah. And it will create hardship. And you ask them, well, Joe, James, whomever, this is hard. This creates hardship for me. If they respond to you in such a way that's like, oh, but is it anywhere near as hard as the stuff you were going through? Joe, James,
they're dismissive.
Yeah, right. If they're dismissive of that, say, Joe, James, I can't afford this. And if their response is, you can't afford not to do this, friend. Classic. If they're not willing to have a conversation about the hardship of that, that's a problem. So I would say leaders have an ethical responsibility to acknowledge the hardship that comes with following their teachings. So, for example, I will always tell you that if you buy into some of the stuff that I say and say, you know, look, recovery is a thing and it's a lifestyle and we've got to wake up and choose it every day. And it involves radically changing kind of how we talk to ourselves and how we utilize our leverage, our mental focus, and how we use our breathing and physiology, all that stuff. I'm going to acknowledge that it is, and if you do a search on my page for the word awkward, I say it all the time. It is going to be awkward. It is going to put you at odds probably with the family you came from. It might put you at odds with the people around you. It will certainly put you at odds with the culture. Our culture is not a recovery culture. Our culture really shames and blames and isn't very big on working or recovering. And I will readily concede that living a recovery lifestyle is going to create hardship for you insofar as it's hard. So you're going to feel like you're marching to the beat of your own drum. Now you're not. There is a worldwide recovery community. Sometimes you got to search to find it. But I don't think there's anything wrong in acknowledging that. No, that's hard. It's hard to wake up. God, ask me how I know. It's hard to wake up every day and choose recovery. So we have an ethical responsibility as leaders in the field to acknowledge that this shit is hard. And that's real. Like, that's not just you being a wuss. That's not just you being negative. That's not just you not being committed. Like, that hardship is real.
And on the positive and sort of empowerment side of things, the ethical responsibility of leaders is also to acknowledge when that program is not right for that person. I had somebody come to me and say, So I'm really working on my purpose statement, and I really want to find my purpose, and I want to do all your stuff. It's been a really hard time for me. I got divorced, and my mother just died, and I've lost all these, and I just, and I lost my job, and going through all of these, like, really, and I'm about to see a psychiatrist because I think I might be clinically depressed, but I know that working your program is going to fix it. And I said, this is not for you. This is not for you right now. Like, find purpose work and statements and stuff. That's wonderful. But you need to talk to a professional. Like, you need so many other things right now before you need this. And so I think many in the self-help industry will try to sell you their cure as the cure, no matter what your problem is. And one of the ethical responsibilities of leaders is to make sure that you are not overpromising that whatever you're selling is the thing that everyone should be buying.
Yeah.
I'll also throw in there just before we move on from this, like, I think it's the ethical responsibility of teachers, and self-help gurus are terrible about this, to acknowledge their influences.
Oh, yes.
Self-help famously has a plagiarism problem. And if you're like me and you're like Christine and you read literally hundreds of self-help books, you know exactly what we're talking about, because you can see the example that I use all the time is Tony Robbins' first book, Unlimited Power. I read this for the first time when I was 15, and I thought it was brilliant. I thought it blew my mind. Then for the next 30 years, I read well over 500 self-help books. It's not an exaggeration. And now I know where he got everything. In some cases, word for word. There's a chapter on unlimited power that is word for word, copied from an old diet book.
It's funny. It's funny too, because they often will present themselves as being very, very intelligent and very well read, self-educated, of course, but they've read everything and they know everything. So there's a red flag for you. If they are simultaneously so well read that they know every author and every book out there, but all of their ideas are completely original to themselves, I think that's a red flag.
Right.
No.
So it's an ethical responsibility, I feel, of leaders to acknowledge their influences. Like, if you hear me talk, like, I can't go 5 minutes without saying, like, oh yeah, this is an old 12-step thing, or this is an old Tony Robbins thing, or this is an old NLP thing, or like whatever it is. So acknowledge your influences.
Yes. All right. Well, I don't know. This one always goes by very, very fast.
Yeah, I know. I was about to say, Jean, we're at over an hour.
We're over an hour. So I want to thank everybody who contributed questions. I know there are questions that we did not get to. I'm always trying very hard to at least try to lump things together so we can try to touch on everything. But I know we didn't get to every question. But we very much appreciate your participation. I'll try to go back in and see if I can get some answers to some of these things after the fact. And otherwise, I'm going to remind everyone, this is our fundraising week. Nope, that way.
There it
is.
There it is.
There's our link for supporting Seek financially, if that is something that is in your ability right now. Otherwise, we've got 2 more nights. So you are supporting us as well by being here, by commenting, by participating, and then sharing us with any friends that you think, fellow self-help people who might be interested in this stuff. So tomorrow night, we will be talking about Seek Safely without James Ray, what we are, what our mission is all about. Why, in my opinion, actually, it doesn't really matter whether James Ray is alive or not. Because our mission is much bigger than that. I know, spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, yeah.
And then on Friday, we will be talking more specifically about, future plans for the next year of Seek. So I hope you'll join us same time, same places, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. And thanks.
If you're a follower of mine, if you want to follow me back to the Dr. Glenn Patrick Doyle page, give me about 10 minutes or so. We'll start the after party live stream. I did catch the question in the chat about Bessel and the Body Keeps the Score. And
yes.
I'm more than happy to talk about Body Keeps the Score.
Okay, great. Good. So I hope that question asker sticks around for your after party.
So head on back to my page and the after party gets going.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Christine. Thank you, Dr. Glenn.
Guys.
Bye, guys.
Have a great night.
Ciao, ciao.
Yes.
Soon.
All right.